Work session adjourned. This time we'd like to call the Nash County Board of Education.
It was working. It died. Did you serve on TV?
This time I'd like to call the Nash County Board of Education meeting to order. Call the roll. Ms. Chavis,
Here.
Mr. Edwards,
Here.
Mr. Bizzett,
Yep.
Mr. Sharp, Mr. Dunn,
Here.
Mr. Jenkins,
Here.
Mr. Silver,
Present.
Ms. Wiggins, Ms. Washington,
Here.
Ms. E. Bullock,
Here.
Ms. S. Bullock.
Here.
This time I'd like to ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Chavis, second by Mr. Silver. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. This time I will entertain a motion to approve the board minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Silver, second by Mr. Bizzett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We're down to recognitions. Dr. Catalano.
Good evening, Chair Lamb, Vice Chair Sharp, and members of the board. I would love to have a room full of people to recognize tonight for this recognition ceremony that we're going to have, but I don't even think we'd have a facility that would house everyone that I'd like to recognize tonight. So for the last 5 weeks, a week ago, the last 5 weeks, we have hosted Nash County Public Schools Summer Scholars Academy. And that has been led by school administrators, by district staff, teachers, cafeteria staff, maintenance and custodial staff, bus drivers, transportation staff, other administrators, support staff, nurses, and just a whole lot of other people who really made that happen this summer. And so I would like to invite Miss Dancy Smith and Mr. Farrow up to, on behalf of Nash County Public Schools, recognize all of the students, parents, and staff who made Summer Scholars Academy successful this summer. Thank you for your leadership. And that concludes our recognitions for this evening.
Okay, we're down to public input. Each month, a part of at least one regularly scheduled board meeting will be set aside for citizens to address the board through public comment. A sign-up sheet will be available in the communications office for any individual or group to indicate their desire to address the board. Deadline is noon the day of the board meeting. Any individual or group can sign up by appearing in person or by calling the communications office. The chairperson will decide the amount of time devoted to public comments. Superintendent shall develop additional procedures to ensure that public comment sessions proceed in an efficient and orderly manner. Board members will not respond to individuals who address the board except to request clarification of points made. Except in cases of emergency, information received during the presentation will not be acted upon at the time it is received. It would take unanimous vote of the board members present to take action on presentation considered to be of an unusual or emergency nature at the time it is presented. Disruptions by any person or persons of a public meeting will be subject to action in accordance with GS 143-318.17. If the board does not hold a regular scheduled meeting during a month, the board will not provide a time for public comment at any other board meeting held during that month unless a majority of the board votes to allow public comment at the meeting or unless the purpose of the meeting is a public hearing. We have 8 speakers listed tonight. Ms. Stephanie Taylor will be the first speaker. Please come forward to the podium.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I understand you have a difficult job because you determine the quality of education our children will receive. I am requesting that masks be optional. As a parent to 5-year-old twins entering kindergarten and an 8-year-old entering 3rd grade, I feel I should determine what is best for them and their overall well-being. All my children attended school or preschool this past year and were forced to wear masks. My children complain constantly of the mask being uncomfortable, hot, and the inability to breathe. If they're distracted by a mask, they cannot possibly concentrate on learning. There is no evidence or data showing the benefits of elementary age children wearing a mask for 8 hours a day. A mask can hinder a child's ability to properly develop verbal and phonetic skills. A child learning to read needs to see their teacher's mouth and hear their teacher's voice clearly, not muffled behind a mask. Children's faces need to be seen, and they deserve to be heard clearly as well. Are the educators prepared to accommodate all the issues associated with wearing a mask? A mask can affect the social development of children. How can a teacher or classmate recognize one's emotions when their expressions are concealed by a piece of cloth? I feel a mask mandate will negatively affect the quality of my children's education. If, at the end of the year, my child's educational goals are unmet due to the damaging effects of a mask, who will be held accountable? I want my children to thrive in school. I want my children to develop socially. I want my children to speak clearly. I want my children's face to shine with expression. I want my children to have the best educational experience. I want my children to breathe freely. I do not want my children to suffer under a mask for 8 hours a day. I should be in charge of my children's health because that is my right as their mother. Therefore, I am requesting you give parents the option to decide whether their child wears a mask or not. Thank you.
Next speaker, Shannon Strickland.
Good evening. Shannon Strickland, mother of a rising kindergartner and aunt of 3 middle and high school students in your schools. Thank you for serving on the board. I know each of you have had to make some very difficult decisions over the last 17 months, and no matter which way you vote tonight, someone's just not going to be happy. I'm not asking for a ban on masks. If a parent or teacher believes that masks make them or their children safer, by all means, please allow them to make that decision and wear one. What I'm asking is a choice by parents, teachers, and students to make their own decisions in regard to their health, risk, and frankly, their normalcy. COVID has been a horrible disease for a select number of people. Stats don't mean anything to someone who's lost a loved one to that disease. I understand and I sympathize. However, we're still talking about a virus that has a greater than a 98% survival rate. That's in line with some cases, but really the likelihood of us dying in a car accident, cancer, or even other risks are higher. If masks and vaccines are as effective as the experts claim, both of which are widely available now, we should really start to reduce the fear of this virus, especially for the overall health of our kids, and not shame those who wish to unmask. As a parent, I'm much more concerned with the health of my child and the children in my family from the effects of the mask, remote learning, and lockdowns as I am contracting or passing along this virus. It's been a disaster for the social development of kids at such an impressible age. I believe removing children and distancing them from their friends, teachers, peers, and structure of school will have very long-term effects for many, many years to come. Since the onset of COVID, my 13-year-old nephew has been to countless doctor's appointments, counseling, speech, and feeding therapy, and was finally diagnosed with avoidant restrictive food disorder and currently sustaining life on protein shakes and Zoloft. It's heartbreaking and awful to watch your nephew starve himself due to crippling anxiety. For young kids like mine, age 5, it affects speech recognition, learning sounds and sentences when they can't see a teacher, mouth words or phrases. Covering their faces also doesn't allow them to see and understand facial expressions or emotions. There are countless studies readily available documenting the adverse side effects from kids wearing masks for more than 8 hours a day regarding growth of sickness-causing bacteria, dental issues, and a host of other issues. I've had countless teachers in this school system beg me to ensure that I spoke for them when I humbly ask you to allow a choice for parents, teachers, and students to wear a mask. All teachers that I've spoken with would support mask choice if they were given the opportunity to voice their opinion. Please vote to give us a choice. Thank you.
Sarah Dixon.
All right, good evening. My name is Sarah Dixon and I have 2 elementary school age children. I enrolled my youngest son, who's actually here with us tonight, in the first Spanish immersion program at Winstead Avenue Elementary in 2016. I've been very pleased throughout the year, or throughout every year of that program. As you are well aware, the past 2020-2021 school year was quite a roller coaster for parents and for children. And I'm very thankful that my son was old enough and far enough along in the program to stick it out. I know other families were not able to do so. On top of an ever-changing schedule, these parents and children had to navigate virtual learning in another language, or when they could be present in the classroom, they had to learn another language from an instructor wearing a mask while also being masked. I'm not sure how this program survived, and I know it suffered. I too am not asking for a mask mandate or a mask ban, but the right to choose what is right for my child. I'm sure every member of this board has looked at the North Carolina data, but to remind everyone on the numbers, through the end of July, the state of North Carolina has had 1,056,627 cases, 136,379 cases in children under the age of 18. It's about 13%. Of the 13,669 deaths, 3 were under the age of 18, equating to a 0.02 chance of death from this virus in school-age children. You cannot statistically argue you're protecting children when the risk level is that low. I did not want my child in a mask last year, but didn't have the data to back up my preference. We clearly know more now than we did a year ago. I know that COVID is real and it has caused deaths and many consequences to our everyday lives. However, every study has shown children are neither primary victims nor primary vectors of this virus. I'm concerned with the levels of anxiety and social isolation many children may be dealing with, specifically in my experience with elementary age children. I know children are resistant, but I know the comfort of classroom participation, social interaction, grades, and testing was lower for my son this past year. And I've heard the same from other parents as well. I don't envy the weight of this decision-making process, and I appreciate your service to this board. Thank you.
Cindy Puckett.
I'm Cindy Puckett. School board members and Superintendent Ellis. So first, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. As you may or may not know, I'm here to speak on the subject of masks for the upcoming school year. I'm not here to debate the ins and outs of COVID, whether someone should take the vaccine or not, or the effectiveness of wearing a mask versus not wearing a mask. We could take a poll of every single person sitting in this room, and I'm pretty confident that everyone here is going to have a different opinion. When our government and healthcare community can't even come to an agreement on this matter, and we are given contradicting information on a daily basis, I can certainly understand why we can't come to a unified decision on anything that has to do with this virus. I'm here simply to say that I feel these decisions should be left up to the parents, not the school system, not the governor, and not any governing agency. I completely understand if a parent feels safer sending their child to school in a mask. I'm not saying they should not have that option. However, just because that decision is right for one family doesn't make it right for all families. Last year, when masks were required in the schools, I had numerous teachers tell me that the masks were way more of a distraction because of constantly reminding students to pull up their mask. If the masks are required again this year, it will mean teachers still having to spend valuable instructional time policing the proper way to wear a mask. I believe there are 115 school systems in North Carolina. As of today, before this meeting, 45 of those districts have met and voted on masks for the school year. Of the 45 that have met, 32 have voted to allow the decision to wear a mask to be left up to the discretion of the parents. This is all that we are asking for. Allow us to decide what is best for our own children. Thank you.
Arlene Khan. Maury Minges.
First, let me say, so you'll know, I've been a resident of Rocky Mount for 48 years. I was a public school teacher over at the original Rocky Mount Senior High and Edwards Middle School. And most importantly, I have a 5-year-old granddaughter who I'm very proud of. She's a tiny, believe it or not, from my side family, blonde, blue-eyed little thing. And that's who I am more concerned with, her education. First thing is masks. Maybe y'all should take a poll of the teachers without them having to be afraid of saying the truth. But I think children are resilient. My 4.5, almost 5-year-old granddaughter wears them with no problem. She is set to be in kindergarten this year, and I know her parents are really undecided what to do. Also, of course, I think I've met her. I would like to see if I can make an appointment with the assistant superintendent. Is that who I need to find out what's actually being taught? I frame pictures, and I have a lot of, or sometimes scraps that I consider scraps that I tried to give to the art teachers. I went to the new Rocky Mount Senior High, or whatever you call it, and they do not have an art teacher. What kind of electives are y'all letting these cool children have? I mean, they got to have a break sometime during the day to learn something besides reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I am really waiting with bated breath to find out the report card of our public schools. The last time I heard, it was in the toilet. And I sure heck hope that y'all have a better report this time. D's and F's. I mean, I taught a long time ago because I'm an old person now, but when I was teaching in the 70s and 80s, we were superior. I don't know what's happened. I'm really confused, and I'm only kind of concerned for my little granddaughter. My 2 children went to public schools, and private schools are way expensive. So I think I can't wait to find out how we're doing now. Thank you.
Danielle Guin.
Gary. Last name is actually Reese, but that's okay. Gwen's my maiden name. Okay. Good evening, board members. First off, I'd like to say that I do not envy any of you in the slightest. I can't imagine trying to speak for an entire community. My first request while listening to me over the next 3 minutes is to listen to me not as board members, but as parents. Please disregard the tremble in my voice, the fear on my face, or the lack of eye contact. I am not a public speaker. I am simply a biologist by education, a chemist by trade, and a stay-at-home mom by choice. We hear so often that children are resilient, that they will be fine, but the truth is some children aren't, and some children won't be fine. At what point did our standards for our children's well-being rest on just fine? Kids need to be great, wonderful, and amazing. We need to do better, especially after the past year and a half. The beginning of last year, parents were given a choice to voice their opinions on what they want for their children, whether that meant to be back in school or to stay virtual. We all know how that turned out. God has given us the privilege and the honor of raising his children to the best of our ability. He has given us the power to make decisions that only we can make. This should be no different. A few weeks ago, I created a petition concerning this topic and have over 330 signatures of parents that want to unmask their children. Maybe that doesn't seem like a lot in the big picture, but we can't discount those signatures. No one knows a student better than the parent. What about the special needs children or the children with sensory issues? What about the students that suffer from claustrophobia or the students that have anxiety? What about the students with asthma? We can't lump all children together and just assume they will be fine. Imagine having to teach kindergartners phonics and not being able to see their mouths as they pronounce new words. Imagine having a class full of children, some possibly away from their parents for the first time, and them not being able to see your smiling face to comfort them. I have several friends that are teachers, and they have expressed their struggles with masks, from having to stop instruction to correct how masks are worn. Not being able to read, the confusion on a timid child's face, to kids not being eager to participate because communication is made more challenging. Our children and teachers deserve better. This decision is a hard one, and there is literally no right answer. You will never be able to make everyone happy. We as parents know what is best, and we only have the right to speak for our children, not someone else's. Everyone deserves the right to make decisions for their children and family based on what they feel is best. Those that want to wear masks will be able to do so no matter what your decision is tonight. That's their right. The same should be available for those that want to stay unmasked. That is what makes this country so great. The right to choose. That is all we are asking for. So please join the multiple North Carolina counties that have already done so by choosing optional for this coming school year. Thank you and God bless.
Phyllis Woodley.
Hi, I'm speaking to you tonight as both a parent and a grandparent. My granddaughter will be starting first grade this year at one of the elementary schools, and my daughter teaches at that same elementary school. As you might imagine, that's a blessing. We're so excited about that. It would have been a super opportunity last year as well when she was in kindergarten. However, we chose to put her in a private school where she could go mask free. It was important to us that when she got to big school, that big school was a little normal. I wanted her to be able to see the smiles. I wanted her to be able to be hugged if she needed it. And I wanted her to be able to hold her friend's hand on that playground when they went skipping. After all, she was a kindergartner. And they did that. She went to school. And until our illustrious governor went in and mandated that the private schools too had to wear masks, for a good portion of that year, they were not masked. And they did not have a single episode of COVID there. They were taught things, like washing their hands and washing down community property and staying at home when they were sick. Just like I don't teach my grandchildren to be afraid of crossing the street, but rather how to cross the street safely. I don't want them to live in fear about this virus. I just want to teach them how to practice some common sense. If we teach them something sustainable, like knowledge and healthy lifestyle, and not to rely on a mask, it will sustain them for the rest of their lives. Now, I do realize that COVID's real. I know it can be deadly. I know people that have had it, they've recovered, and I know some that haven't. I'm so much more worried about what we're doing to these kids socially and emotionally than I am during the COVID. I know elementary students, unfortunately, personally, that have been diagnosed with clinical depression. And it's mostly due to the fact that they haven't been able to interact with their children, their friends, and they're walking around looking at faceless people. These children need desperately to see that teacher smile when they go in that classroom. They need to see that little grin that says, hey, I'm here and I'm here for you, and you're on the right track. I know if they go to school with no mask, it's very possible that some children may be sick, and that's horrible. I know there's a possibility, God forbid, that we might lose one. And that's the most horrible thing you could think of. But I also know that if they go with masks, some children are going to be sick. All of them are going to suffer socially and emotionally, whether you see it now or 10 years later. And I also know that it's a real possibility that we're going to lose children who take their own lives because of this. I so appreciate you guys trying to keep our children safe, but don't do it at the risk of their emotional health. In my last 30 seconds here, 10 seconds here, I want to tell you that my daughter teaches, and she said, as she's on the beach, her last 2 seconds before school starts, just let me teach and get rid of these masks.
Thank you. Michael Maiden, he's speaking about the Rocky Mount Baseball Stadium. 10 minutes.
Still on this board, my bill for this phone. Good evening to this very distinguished board. I'm Michael Maiden. I'm from the Windy City, Chicago. And I'm in your very fine city today. Well, let me give a little history about myself. I'm a former Major League Scout. I scouted for 5 Major League teams. I coached college baseball, coached high school baseball, and I've done the travel ball. I've been involved with baseball 41 years this year. And I'm also ordained minister of the gospel. And I'm in your very fine city today for 2 reasons. Number one, regarding the historic Rocky Mountain Municipal Stadium. And number 2, our vision of what we want to bring and share with this city of Rocky Mountain. Rocky Mountain Historic Municipal Stadium, which in the 40s, 50s, and 60s was a thriving minor league park, which played host to a number of Major League Baseball greats as they made their way from the minor leagues to the big leagues. Rocky Mountain Municipal Stadium served as the home field and training ground for MLB Hall of Famers. Tony Perez, a 2000 inductee, member of the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Jim Thorpe, a 1963 inductee in the Football Hall of Fame, and some other notable greats that include Billy Butler, Casey Cox, Jack DeLorme, Earl Johnson, Gene Lamont, Jim Leland, Elliot Maddox, Lee Mays, and Greg Maddox, Greg Pryor, I'm sorry, among many others. Y'all making me a little nervous and intimidated up here. This field served as the home of the Rocky Mountain Leafs, Senators, Phillies, the Pines. Some of you might remember the Pines and their history, and the Carolina League. Through our non-for-profit Future Entrepreneurs of America, once again, we want to partner with some members here of Rocky Mountain to bring this baseball league back to life. We have submitted our proposal to this body to purchase this field that has been sitting and unused for at least the past 3 years, to restore it to its glory by bringing an independent developmental baseball league to the city of Rocky Mountain this fall, starting this fall in October of 2021. From there on, this league will consist of 2 seasons, a June season, June through August, and an October season, October through November, with 150 players per season, with half of those players consisting of local players. Through our Future Entrepreneurs program, we are proposing to bring a training program, entrepreneurship training program, which will be part of our community outreach program. We will offer a job training and internship program that includes sports management training, radio and TV production, broadcast and play-by-play, umpire training, concession management, and team management to the youth of Rocky Mountain. With future plans for youth baseball camps, clinics, and a girls softball league, cheerleaders, arts, and craft and gospel concerts, etc. In closing, this body holds the key to opening these doors of opportunities and bringing great economic impact to this region with your vote to accept our proposal. We have made a sincere, honest, and good faith offer to this board for the opportunity to bring this vision to pass. Let me repeat that. At the time we made our offer, we were the only one making an offer on this property. Unbeknown to us, other offers came in, and we were never given an opportunity to revise our offer to make sure that it was the best offer, which we more than willing to do if that's its requirement of this board. Although we were, it was kind of implicated that we're interested in what was going to be brought to the facility as to how much was going to be spent on it. Based on that fact, we made a sincere, honest, and good faith offer to this board for the opportunity to resurrect Rocky Mount Stadium, past history, and connect it with future generations of baseball players. With that October 2001 inauguration season right around the corner and the need for preparation, we're asking this body to make yourself a committee of one and not prolong this matter, but to give us your vote today to allow this opportunity to become a reality starting today. And I want to conclude with a short video presentation that we made for this board to show you our history and what we want to do here with the youth in Rocky Mount.
My name is Sarah Dixon. I'm from the south side of Chicago. I'm currently a Chicago police officer, 19 years with the Chicago Police Department. Coach Maiden had to be my freshman year of high school, so it had to be around 1991. Some of those opportunities, the experience I had just leaving the city and being able to play baseball and be out of town for an inner city kid, man, was invaluable. And I'll tell you why. A lot of those times, and a lot of people don't know it, I grew up in the inner city neighborhoods. I wasn't a part of gangs and all that, but I did have friends that I hung out with. And a lot of times when I was away playing baseball, when I would get back home, things that happened on the block, so to speak. And me being away playing baseball and doing something positive and learning other things from different cultures and from Coach Maiden himself kept me out of a lot of those problems. There was one instance where we were actually getting ready to go out of town, and I had to be at the park. He had to be at Jesse Owens Park at 3 p.m. And I was standing out on the corner down a block in front of my friend's building with him and a bunch of our other buddies. And I walked off the corner, half-hour all in. I'm like, man, I got to go. I'll see y'all in a couple of days. I walked off the corner. I got 3 houses down, man. And the car that I saw coming down the street shot the corner. One of my buddies got shot. And it hurt me. But had it not been for baseball and not been for having that opportunity to play and go out of town, I may have been standing on that corner at that exact moment. But the fact that I had to leave and had a responsibility to be at that park and to leave at this certain time, saved my life and made problems. So, like I said, those experiences playing baseball, growing up in the inner city, the neighborhoods now are invited. You don't get those guys. I know I played with so many different people. I can only imagine how many kids he actually touched along the way in 40 years. Like 40 years is a long to be an influence, to be role model, to be a coach, and to do something you actually love. As long as I've known Coach Maiden, he's always loved the game of baseball. He's loved what the game of baseball has given to him. Something I like to say to Coach Maiden that I never said to him before is that I love him, and I appreciate it. He acted like my dad, but I don't think I ever told him that I love him. And that's one thing I want him to know forever. And, he's always been on my mind. It's always been on my heart. I talk about my days of playing baseball all the time, and he's a big part of it. Because without him, I don't know how far I would have went, or don't know how far I would have went without it. Yeah, Coach Maiden, man, this is Jack. I love you. Coach, man, I thank you, man. Thank you for the opportunity to sit here and do this, man. We got to do this, man. Doing more. I love you too, sir. Yes. Later, man. See you later. To go to a baseball tournament, and little did I know 5 years ago that it was gonna come to this, covering the World Series between the Phillies and the Yankees here in 2009. Played on his travel baseball team. One thing led to the next. I ended up playing college baseball for him, and from there, it just went on and finished up college ball at Franklin Pierce. But really, ultimately, college baseball, I don't think would have happened for me if I never met Coach Maiden, nor this. So everything pretty much with baseball stems from Mike Maiden and just having the will and the passion to really want to keep up with it. And hopefully someday it turns into something more. And for the both of us, this experience builds a lot of character because you learn stuff in the classroom and there's only so much that you can learn. And then you learn on the job. You know, you learn on the fly, as Coach says. Man, let me tell you something. My experience in baseball, Coach Michael Maiden, first of all, is the type of thing that growing up, those type of things you dream about. Like I said, Michael Maiden introduced us to night baseball, playing in the big boy stadium.
I think that's said enough. We don't need to go any farther. I thank you for your time. I thank you for the opportunity to share our vision, and God, may God bless you.
That concludes public input for the night. Public hearing sale of Rocky Mount Baseball Stadium, Dr. Catalano. Mr. Davis, excuse me. Business item, surplus, Rocky Mount Baseball Stadium.
Good evening. At a special called board meeting on July 19th, the board voted to hear presentations from interested parties on the proposed use of the facility, the Rocky Mount Baseball Stadium. We have heard one of the two presentations of the interested parties tonight. There are no fiscal implications at this time. The superintendent does recommend the board authorize staff of the process to dispose of the property.
Any questions from Mr. Davis? Are we gonna start the upset bid process, or we have a figure in
I think
mind?
we're asking for a motion as the process we're going to use, either the upset bid, which is what we've used on all other properties we've disposed of with the district, or other means.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is there a reason why we have not heard from the other interested parties?
We have received two other proposals. Two of them did not speak tonight.
Is there a reason why?
They were reached out to, but they chose not to speak tonight. The other was the Leonard Association. So the second party is the Leonard Association is here.
Mr. Chair, I can make a motion. We allow them to speak as well.
I think it has to take a full majority vote.
I mean, I guess it's a little weird. The board at the last meeting invited them to speak. I don't know.
Body and sign up.
Yeah, I don't know what the process is supposed to be to sign up. But I mean, the board, I think it probably makes sense to clean this if they didn't sign up for the board, but that'd be my recommendation.
Your recommendation
To go ahead and vote since they didn't sign up for
Okay.
whatever reason. Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion.
I just made that motion, Mr. Chair,
What would you make?
to allow them to speak.
Okay, the motion to allow them to speak. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silver. Roll call vote. Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
yes. Mr. Bizzett,
No.
Mr. Charles,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Silver,
Yes.
Ms. Washington,
Yes.
Ms. E. Bullock,
Yes.
Ms. S. Bullock.
Yes.
Motion passed. Okay. And a motion to allow them to speak.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, my name is Natarlin Best. I'm a local attorney in Rocky Mount and Chair of the Board of the Leonard Association for Sports and Human Enrichment. Just as a matter of clarification, it was our understanding, because we had been invited by the board, that it was not a part of the public comment session, but that we were to speak to our proposal. And that is why we did not sign up. I am here to simply tell you that we have a board of 11 members who have been committed over more than 20 years in providing sports and recreation to the youth of our community, particularly low-risk youth, in order to get them off the streets and to get them into not only sports, but use sports as a catalyst to get them involved in educational and other activities. We submitted a proposal, and I will yield my time to 3 other speakers who would address our proposal and why we feel that it's important that Buck Leonard Association for Sports and Human Enrichment, a not-for-profit organization born and bred in this community in the name of local citizen and Negro League baseball player Buck Leonard, be granted the opportunity to have this stadium. We have Mr. Charles Walters, a former Negro League player who resides here in Rocky Mount, who will speak for 2 minutes. Mr. Brian Patterson, who is our board vice chair and a longtime member of the board, as well as a coach for the youth in this community for many years. And we will have Ms. Rose Hunter, who is the CEO of the organization and longtime worker in this community, dedicated to the youth. And lastly, Dr. John Avant, who is also a member of this community, who will speak to the need to have the Buck Leonard Association be the organization that takes the responsibility for reviving the stadium, to be committed to the youth, but also to be a catalyst for reviving our community that we care about.
Good evening, board members. My name is Charles Walters. I'm an ex-ball player in the old Negro League. I played in the 1960s, and I'm here tonight trying to represent the unsung heroes of the old Negro players that didn't have the opportunity to express what they should fit today. So in short, I just want to say I'm a member of the Brooklyn Cuban Giants of the Negro League. And it's a great honor and pleasure for me to be here before you tonight to represent those unsung heroes and of the baseball league. And I think while it would be fit and proper for the stadium to be in possession of the Buck Leonard Association, is that it's an iconic issue that happened. Here's Buck Leonard himself as a 9-year-old kid peeping through the fence, and he gets arrested for doing that. But he went on to become one of the greatest ball players in the history of baseball. So it just goes to show you, with the opportunity available, there's no telling what kids can grow to, those seeds can manifest to. So I'm just seeking on behalf of the ball players that's not here. I think I'm about 47. I think it's 47 members left. So today is my birthday. Thank you very much. 81 years old. So I will be here stressing for the opportunity for these kids to have an opportunity to grow. And it'd be for all kids, both male and females. And it'd be for the enhancement of their social development. I have 10 minutes.
That's the whole time for everything.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I'm not going to short this because I can go on and on. So anyway, thank you very much for considering this situation to happen. And hopefully in your heart and your soul that you look at it as being a very positive move for the city to get this opportunity to do something for the kids and keep them on a safe track. Thank you very much for listening to me, and good afternoon.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
So board members, my name is Brian Patterson. A lot of people refer to me as coach, but actually I'm the director of the RBI, Buck Leonard RBI League here. I'm the grandson of Buck Leonard. I'm also the son of the CEO, Rose Hunter. And been running the baseball RBI League since 2010. Actually, we started running the league in 1999, and before that, it was run, started in the early 90s by a group of entrepreneurs and also churches, local churches here. We are the face of inner city baseball. I have been doing so for almost 20 years, and before that, 10 years before we took it over. We operate a league that's housed right in Buck's neighborhood. The municipal stadium is in Little Raleigh, a portion of the city where Buck grew up. We've, at our height, we've had over 200 kids enrolled in our RBI program. Significant thing about the RBI program is that we don't turn any kids away. You know, playing baseball is very expensive. A lot of our kids play free of charge, no fees whatsoever. And if we do charge them, as a minimum fee of $15 to play baseball. Compare that to the City League, Babe Ruth League of $30 and $40. We do this on a shoestring budget, and because we love the kids. There's no time to reinvent the wheel. We've been doing this, been growing these seeds, like I said, for over 20 years. At our height, we had over 200 to 300 kids. Because of the COVID-19 that we took a year off. Our numbers are about 150 kids now. We have a introduction to baseball league, which comprises of 4 to 10 years old. We have a 12-year baseball league division and also a 16-year. And we hope to expand in the coming years. Our overall goal is to bring baseball academy to Rocky Mount and to use Municipal Stadium as a hub for this. My goal and my hope is one day that we'll bring baseball back to the inner city and we'll incorporate more minorities in the game. Thank you, appreciate it.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Rose Hunter, and I'm glad to be here having this conversation about baseball in Nash and Edgecombe County. We've been doing this for 20 years. I retired, 20 years ago? And I'm still not tired of doing this work. This has been an all volunteer venture, all volunteer staff for 20 years. Never missed one game at every single game. We have a back office and a field office, and we work those both. We're in the back office doing the paperwork, enrolling the children, and in the field office, being there to engage the children, to nurture them, to make sure that they can get to the game. We have to transport the children to the games, take them back home, feed them sometime, whatever it takes. So we want to start this process from the crib. We have a program called Baseball, Ice Cream, and Books, where we have to find a way to entice the attention of young children to the game of baseball. So ice cream is the trick. And then we give them the book, and then we give them the baseball, and it works. It's a hook. We are always designing other ways to get our children involved. We know it takes a lot, strategies, perseverance, time, and this is all we do. Let's get back to Buck Leonard. Buck Leonard was born in Rocky Mount, 1907, I believe it was. He lived right behind this baseball park. He would look through the fence to see those kids play baseball. And he said, that's something I really want to do. And he worked at it. He went on to play 17 years with the Homestead Grays. He and Josh Gibson were called the Thunder Twins. They were inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame the very same time. Next year, we represent their 50th year, and we want to have a big celebration in that stadium right there, right behind his home. Now, to do this work, it's going to take a lot of partners. And we spent those years, the last year and a half during COVID-19, creating more partnerships, because the things that need to be done in Rocky Mount cannot do it all. They shouldn't have to do it all. So we reached out all over the country. We have alliances, first of all, with the Negro, we have a National Negro Family and Player Alliances, the Josh Gibson family, the Satchel Paige family, the Turkey Stern family. All those guys who play baseball, their families are part of our organization now. They're working together with us. We have letters of support from all of them. 3 minutes, okay? Let's see what we can review right quick. We have a letter here from Sean Gibson. They're in Pittsburgh. He is trying to get his great granddaddy, his name as the MVP player for the National Leagues. We have a letter here from Larry LeGrand. And Larry says, I remember the time I came to Rocky Mount where Buck Leonard was vice president of Rocky Mount Leafs. That's right. Tony Perez did play in Rocky Mount, but he played under Buck Leonard. Lee May played in Rocky Mount, but he played under Buck Leonard. Buck Leonard is considered a gentleman's gentleman. He's one of the nicest fellows you're ever going to meet. The other thing about bringing this baseball program to Rocky Mount, again and again and again, we can go back to Buck Leonard. Buck Leonard was an entrepreneur. He believed in pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. Now, he did not finish high school until he retired from baseball. Came back home, became a truant officer, athletic director with Mr. Lawrence, and he got his high school diploma, went back and got his real estate license, and then went on to become the first Black real estate broker in Rocky Mount. The man was awesome in every single way. There's nothing that we cannot do under Buck Leonard's name. We also have a letter here from Durham Triple Play League in Durham. They are in partnership with the Durham Bulls. They will host the Mid-Atlantic RBI next year in Durham, and we will be a part of that process. I also have a letter here from the Durham Bulls. And before we read that letter, I just want to say a couple more things about Buck Leonard and why we need to have this park named for Buck Leonard. We also have his home on the list of historic places here in Rocky Mount. There was another home given to our organization that we're using to house our library about the Negro League, and also as a research center for high school and college students. We have done all of this in our own community, on our own steam, while taking care of our children. We are the most deserving partner for minor league baseball, Major League Baseball, since Buck Leonard was already, merged with the Major League Baseball players from across the nation. And he now has been equated right there with Blue Gary. So we have a lot to work with. This is our native son. We want to keep this in our community. We want to nurture our children and teach them the history of this city. We don't need anybody to do it for us. We've been doing it for 20 years. We want to keep on doing it. Doctor, what do you mean? 9 minutes. Is that 9 seconds? Can we read one more letter? Doctor.
We ain't got no time.
Could you give me one more minute? We just wanted.
Have a majority of the board agree to that?
Just 1 minute. I had one other piece of that's going to be very important to share with you. Doctor, you want to bring that up and give it to the chair probably.
I'll take it and make copies for the rest of the
Okay.
board members. Thank you, sir.
I can pass this over if you like.
Okay, thank you.
I'll give this to. All right, thank you.
You.
Time's up.
Okay. Mr. Davis has a surplus Rocky Mount Baseball Stadium. I will entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we set the price on the reference property at $103,000 as a cash offer and begin the upset bid price with that.
Second. I have a motion by Mr. Dunton, second by Mr. Visit. Roll call vote, Ms. Chape? Yes.
So, just to be clear, there is not currently such an offer. There's $103,000 paid over certain years. I think Mr. Johnson's motion is that the board would accept $103,000 offer to single payment. Cash. Yeah, and that if it gets received, the superintendent is authorized to start the upset bid process. Very well done, Rod. Very well done.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I'm under an impression, and we've just heard their presentations from two groups. I understand the need to liquidate this property because we're not in the real estate business. We're trying to move on and get money in our coffers. But we've had some good presentations, and I don't know if we shouldn't have further discussion about this, just so that we get a full understanding of what we're giving back to our community. Both of these groups had some very good points. And I don't know if we should just make a decision that abruptly. That's just my
Well,
thought.
we have a motion and a second. We can do a vote on that.
Okay.
And go from there. Roll call vote. Ms. Chavis?
No.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Visit? Yes. Mr. Sharp?
No.
Mr. Dunton?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins? Yes. Mr. Silver?
No.
Ms. Washington?
No.
Ms. E. Bullock?
No.
Ms. S. Bullock?
No.
Okay, motion is defeated.
May we have discussion, Mr. Chair?
Ma'am,
So we've heard from both of those groups, and I just want to thank Mr. Buck Leonard's family for their deposit into the baseball history of Rocky Mount. And also Mr. Maiden. Mr. Maiden has been consistent since day one when we started these discussions. I'm one to sit back and observe. What I've seen is consistency in presentation, in heart and desire to bring baseball to the inner city community of Rocky Mount. I'm confident in his experience. We've seen the testimonials. We've heard about his experience. It is my hope that in the future, both entities could work together and make a fabulous deposit into baseball in the youth of Rocky Mount. That being said, I'd like to make the motion that we accept Mr. Maiden's offer for the facility.
Second.
Oh, we just.
Got a motion in a second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor.
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're gonna accept that and not follow the upset bid process?
Like we've always done.
I mean, is that what the
Well,
motion is for, Ms. Washington? You're gonna take it and not have an upset bid process?
It seems that the motion for the upset bid was defeated, so yes.
No, ma'am. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm asking a question. What is your motion? Is it to accept the 103 and not take an upset bid? Just take it and be done tonight? Is that what you're proposing? Ms. Washington?
My motion is to accept the offer from Coach Maiden's Association, yes, and move forward.
But what does moving forward mean? That's what I'm asking. Are you gonna close the deal, move forward with the upset bid process? Is that what you're asking?
No, the board has the right to override that and make a decision. My motion is that we
But I'm
accept,
asking you, what do you mean by move forward?
accept the offer from Coach Maiden and move forward.
So there's a motion on the floor, so let's just proceed with the motion.
But is the motion for the 103 all in cash at once, or is it for the payments?
That's not their offer.
Correct.
This needs to be a further discussion.
Yeah, Shannon, can you go ahead and let them, go ahead and discuss the offer so everybody's clear on what the offer is?
Yes, the Future Entrepreneurs of America had a $70,000 offer over 10 years with 700 due at signing. And the Buck Leonard Association had 103,000 with a 10% down with a 6-year payoff. Those were the two. The third offer that we did receive was a $3,000 cash offer from Kevin Jones. Those were the 3 offers received.
My motion still stands. Thank you, Shannon.
Who made her, who did she recommend what price?
So you're recommending, LaShawna, we accept the $70,000 for 10 years?
That's correct. I see the benefit beyond dollars here. And like I stated, that Mr. Coach Maiden has been here since day one, been consistent, has the experience. I just think we can take it to another level. And like I said, in the future, I would hope that both entities could work together. But here today, my motion still stands.
Then we have a motion by Ms. Washington, who second? Yeah. Well,
We cannot hear the discussion on the floor. Can someone speak in the mic, please?
No, sir, we've already finished public input. We're discussing what the motion is on the floor.
Years that you have moved away from that for a whole new motion. I don't understand that, certainly does not seem like that's the way it operates. So,
Do you think the board needs more discussion on this?
Do we need to table this?
I've got a motion.
Yeah, got it.
There is an attorney-client aspect of this that the board.
Mr. Malone.
Yes, I'm sorry. There is an attorney-client aspect of this that we probably should discuss. I mean, maybe tabling this and discussing it in closed at the next meeting might be in the board's best interest. There is one component to this that probably should at least be discussed by the board.
Legal component, Mr. Malone, liability component for the board?
No, it goes to your ability to actually proceed legally with the motion that you've made. You know, the statute has certain aspects to it that I think that for the board to act, they should be fully informed of the legal options available.
That, I understand. Thank you for the advisement, counsel. With that being said, I withdraw the motion.
Mr. Chair, I'm somewhat confused. It seems to me that both entities are wanting to do a payment arrangement in terms of looking at doing installments over a period of 6 or 7 years. And I was listening to Mr. Dunton, and I was led to believe that he was thinking that perhaps we could look at accepting that $103,000 bid and do an upset from that. I think we need to have more discussion as a board to find out where we're going and what we want to do as a board. It's a lot of great areas here for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ms. Davis.
I was just gonna make the motion that we table this until we take the advice of our attorney and discuss it further. I do understand Mr. Dunton's concern. We are not in the real estate business, but we do need to start somewhere, and I think have some closed session discussion. That would be my motion if need be.
We have a motion by Mr. Davis. Do we
I
have a
second.
Second. Mr.
Second.
Sharp. Roll call vote, Ms. Chavis.
Yes.
And the motion, to be clear, was to table this until we have more advice from the lawyer.
And more discussion among the board members as
Right.
well.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Bissett. Mr. Sharp,
Yes.
Mr. Dunton,
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins,
Yeah.
Mr. Silver,
Yes.
Ms. Washington,
Yes.
Ms. E. Bullock,
Yes.
Ms. S. Bullock.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Be tabled. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you both for your presentation. Thank you.
Now, let me be clear. Would this be revisited with our next month's meeting in
Yes.
September?
Yes.
We'll do this in closed session?
Well,
Okay.
just the legal.
Just the legal.
The legal bit.
That I just want to make sure the board is clearly
I get that, okay.
enclosed, and then the casual discussion about what to do.
In open session.
Gotcha.
2021-22 COVID opening plan. Dr. Catalano.
So before we go over the COVID opening for this school year, I need the board to understand, we've been preaching, and I'll call it preaching, to principals for the past 2 months now, high expectations for all. And I'm saying that because tonight, when you see this plan in the toolkit, I want you to think about last year. I want you to think about being in Plan B, C, A, B. Kids getting 45 days of school, some getting 90, some being virtual. Think about when we go over this plan, that the virtual option that we had last year, to me, wasn't the most productive way to educate kids. And being a longtime educator, kids need to be in the building, need to be in the seats so teachers can do their jobs and teach. And I think when you see test scores and you see data, when we have summer scholars of 3,500 some students attending, it is obvious that we are building larger gaps between kids because of this pandemic. So our goal is this year, kids are going to be back in school. We don't have a virtual option except the NETA, which we've already enrolled students. We can't take students in. That was our goal, was to make sure we were limited because we can't keep adding students in. So when we go through this toolkit, start thinking about what it's going to look like in this building this year. Because we want to go back to normal. That's what we want here in this building. We want to go back to normal because these students need to be in school. So when we go to the toolkit, there are some things you're going to hear about that have changed that to me are going to impede, or also we need to think about. Okay. So as you can tell, the guidance has changed once again, starting July 30th. So last week, we have the new Strong Schools NC Public Health Toolkit that came out. And I believe Ms. Grant
Yes.
will.
It's me. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. As we start with our first strategy that's outlined in the Strong Schools Toolkit, as should be implemented by schools, is social distancing. And really the recommendation from Strong Schools is to maintain a minimum of 3 feet between pre-K through 13 students within the school setting to the greatest extent possible. And then maintain a minimum of 6 feet between students and adults and between adults who are not fully vaccinated to the greatest extent possible. As we talk about quarantine and contact tracing, we, since the very beginning of COVID, have been really diligent about quarantining and contact tracing. The quarantine time remains the same, with the CDC recommending 14 days after last exposure, with the following options to reduce the time. So there is a 10 days of quarantine with no symptoms, 7 days of quarantine, no symptoms, and a negative COVID test no earlier than day 5. And if discontinued prior to day 14, just to continue to monitor the symptoms and strictly adhere to wearing the mask, the physical distancing, et cetera, all the mitigating measures, preventative measures being put in place through day 14. Contact tracing still remains the same as our nurses did all last year. So the times that are outlined, the new aspects to quarantining are, they did allow us some exceptions for quarantining when there is someone who has come in close contact to someone who's been determined to be positive with COVID-19, whether through testing or symptoms. So the following is a list of students and staff situations now where they would not have to quarantine. Students who are fully vaccinated, they have an exposure and no symptoms. Staff who are fully vaccinated have an exposure and they're not symptomatic either. They tested positive for COVID within the last 3 months, recovered and not symptomatic. As well now as students who are not fully vaccinated after close contact, if masks are worn appropriately and consistently by both the person with COVID-19 and the potentially exposed person, then those students would not have to quarantine either.
I'm sorry. We still have the Contagious Disease Leave Act that's in effect. In order for us to make sure that an employee has been fully recommended for this, we do have to do this in conjunction with the health department. So they are required to complete the contagious disease leave form. Doctor's documentation is required. We have a system in place where we get approval from the health department, and employees can receive up to 21 days of paid leave if approved. And if they've already exhausted some of those days, they are only eligible for up to those 21 days, unless the CDC or health department or the state comes back and approves for additional time.
So another strategy that we will be implementing this year to help limit the exposure and spread of COVID within our schools is to conduct COVID testing and screening. So North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services is fully funding COVID-19 testing and screening that will be implemented for our unvaccinated staff and students in order to further prevent in-school transmission while really minimizing the in-person learning lost time, which is really our goal. We're going to work with our state contracted vendor to develop our plan, considering the following options. We are going to consider conducting on-site testing for students and staff who are experiencing symptoms or who have come in close contact with someone with COVID-19. We will offer weekly screenings for staff and consider offering screenings for high-risk sports and extracurricular activities. Of course, parental consent will, for minors, will have to be obtained, and consent from students will also have to be obtained.
Our fall sports will begin on August the 2nd for the high schools, which was today. And on the 16th, our middle schools will be starting as well. The masks will follow our local board policy that is per the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. So for fans and athletes that are not participating in vigorous activity. So moving forward, regardless of the choices, when they are participating in vigorous activity, even if it is indoors, they will not have to wear the mask. For example, volleyball is the only indoor sport right now. So they would not have to, if they were on the court, when they're on the bench, they would wear a mask as well as the coaches. That is a little bit different than what you saw last year, I think, even moving into football season, because it is outdoors. At this time, they do not have to be masked in their helmet as they were last year. Outdoors, they do not have to have their mask on. When attending away events, this is going to be key. Our fans and our student athletes have to adhere to the local standards at the other location. So speaking of high school, we have 8 teams now in our conference. Whatever their boards approve, regardless of what we or our guidelines are, they will adhere to those. And middle school as well. And we are in 3 counties with our middle school. So, and on the buses, all student athletes and coaches will be masked on the bus, regardless of the decision today. We just wanted to make that one clear as we move forward. And the other added piece would be the GoFan tickets are still going to be ticketless, and we're going to be using those online. Do you have any athletic questions at this time that I can help you with?
Angie, you got breakfast and lunch.
So as it relates to school nutrition, breakfast in the classroom will continue, and our managers and supervisors have been working with the principals. They will still continue to do that in the classroom. That has been very beneficial, and many of our schools were doing that prior to COVID. School lunches, the lunchrooms will not be at full capacity at this time. So, and that is not based on local guidelines. They are state guidelines still in place, but we are encouraging them to go through the line and then go back to the classroom. And we're also working with individual schools to meet those needs. Again, that is a little different than what you're voting on today with your option A, B, or C, because we can't go fully staffed in our, fully full capacity in our lunchrooms because we just don't have enough spacing. The drive-through services will continue, and per the state guidelines and federal guidelines, this school year, the entire school year, 0 to 18 will be eating free. So the breakfast and lunches will be provided for all students and drive-through service for our communities. Any questions about school nutrition? Thank you.
As far as facilities go, sanitizing will continue to have staff cleaning classrooms. Elementary K-5 will be at the end of each day, middle and high after each change of class. And custodians will continue doing high traffic areas cleaning. There will be no deep cleaning Fridays. We will have school 5 days. Ionizers and GPS units, as you know, have been installed in all of classrooms, office areas. One thing we've added is a HEPA filtration system. We've purchased one of those for each office area where we may have people coming in and out. It's kind of an enhanced filtration system. Water fountains will not be in use at this time. PPE equipment, of course, will still be available for all schools, and playgrounds will be utilized.
I have a question. Just a quick question. Since we will not be using the water fountains, are we doing bottled water? What are we doing to make sure our kids get plenty of water?
From an athletic standpoint, Ms. Miller has handled that from that aspect, and I think she'll be handling it.
Right behind.
Okay.
Athletically, we do have a plan for that. And as far as it relates to the classroom part, we are asking for them to please bring their water bottles. We can fill them in the cafeterias. We do have that provided. It is at our cost that we are also providing cups and water for them out of the cafeteria. It has been tested. We've never shut down. So our waters have all been tested and approved. We are able to do that. We can't afford to give them all bottled water, but we do have a plan.
So that was the process we used last year as well.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
From your previous slide.
Yes, sir.
You were talking about, when we travel,
Yes, sir.
will we make sure ADs notify parents, email there?
That's a great question. So I've talked with all coaches. We actually had our kickoff for all the high schools. The entire 8 schools came to our school last week, and we planned. The plan moving forward with that is every Monday, because boards will be meeting at different times and weekly changes will be made. So we will get plans. Coaches and athletic directors will send out notifications weekly so that when we're traveling, we know what to expect when we get there. Good question.
So in terms of communication and the COVID dashboard, a lot of this will be similar to what we did last year. In terms of internal tracking, we will, the nurses will be tracking the number of positive cases in each facility as well as the number of quarantined. We will publicly post the number of positive cases in each facility on the dashboard, just as we have for the last, I think, year and a half. Internally, there is that spreadsheet that we will track not only the positive cases and the number quarantined, but also the county alert data and the CDC transmission data, just so you have access to that. The printed reminders of the COVID mitigation strategies we will provide to all of the schools. So social distancing, signage, and the decision that's made tonight, we will make sure that that information is posted in the schools, not only the social distancing, but sanitizing and hand washing as well is the other sign that we will have available for the schools to post. And then we have a communication plan that we've worked with Ms. Grant and the nurses on and the principals on communicating positive cases and the need to quarantine on a consistent basis when that need arises. And so we have got some data for you. This is similar data that we had shared at our past presentation. So the county alert system is reported every 2 weeks. We have got a report that should be coming out this week. It's usually available on Tuesdays, but you can see that both Nash County and Edgecombe County in the 2-week North Carolina County Alert System have been in the moderate category based on the data that's under there. The Edgecombe County tier was in the significant range on June 21st, but it moved into the moderate range. And that is based on a 2-week case rate, the number of positive cases per 100,000, and the 14-day percent positive. And I won't read those to you if that's okay. Then the other thing that we will be tracking is the CDC community transmission level. And this is reported out very similar metrics actually, but they actually report it on a 7-day cycle instead of a 14-day cycle. And so, and again, their tiers are different in terms of the threshold of them. But you see that Edgecombe in July was in the substantial range. Nash on July 22nd, I'm sorry. And Nash County was in the moderate range. July 29th was the most recent update on that, and Edgecombe moved into the high range and Nash County moved into the substantial range for those. And then these are our COVID dashboard data for through summer school, actually. And so you see our number of positive cases. There actually was 1 positive case for the 5 weeks of summer school. And we did have some quarantined staff and students. And again, this is a combination of both staff and student cases. And I'll pause there. Does anyone have any questions about the data before I go into? Okay. Visitors. So according to the yep.
Dr. Catalano, I have a question. And my question is, with the Delta variant, will that information be separate from the COVID-19 data, or will it be together?
Dr. Carolina, do you want me to answer that?
Yes, Deb's coming up as well.
Okay, good. We'll let Deb answer that since she's there.
Hello, everyone. My name's Deb Terrell. I'm the lead nurse for the school system. That data isn't sorted out as whether it's Delta or the original. It's just a general percentage. So we don't know which is which right now. And nationwide, it's about 75% of the cases are currently Delta. So that's the majority of the cases we're seeing across the country.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so according to the Strong Schools Toolkit, visitors would be allowed in schools, visitors and volunteers. They would be able to resume normal activities if they follow the same protocols as staff and students do. So we would still want to maintain social distance between visitors and students, and between visitors who are not fully vaccinated within the school setting to the greatest extent possible. And of course, all of the hand sanitizing and all of those other mitigation measures.
Dr. Ellis has shared that it is our desire that students return for in-person instruction and that we resume to some normalcy. So in elementary, our instructional day will begin at 8:15 and it will end at 3:15. In middle and high schools, the instructional day will begin at 7:30 and it will end at 2:30. Note that that is Monday through Friday with full days of instruction from bell to bell. At City, the early college, high school, and TRA, you see that the times will resume to the normal time until we vote on what was presented in our calendar, in our committee meetings this afternoon. I do want to share that in Nash Everywhere Digital Academies, the student day will mimic the elementary and middle school schedules. Our high school students will have the opportunity to work at their own pace with the requirement that all assignments must be submitted on time. School activities. Open houses will resume. They will operate as in-person events, possibly with staggered times for families. All of this information will be posted to districts' web pages as well as to the school's web pages. All safety protocols must be adhered to. Assemblies, it is the same. Students will participate in any assemblies, but we will adhere to safety protocols. Field trips. Field trips will resume in the fall. All safety protocols must be followed. And just be cognizant that students will be required to wear masks on buses, regardless of the decision that is made here tonight. And we will follow all protocols that are in place.
So Dr. Ellis alluded to the change to the toolkit that occurred, I think it was the 30th, maybe the 29th. We did send a survey out to principals prior to that change based on the recommendations that were in that toolkit. So I want to say that before I unpack the principal survey for you. We sent it to elementary, middle, and high school principals. We had a pretty high response rate. Just a couple did not respond to the survey. The only question really in the survey, other than comments, was as a principal, which option would you prefer as we open schools? And again, at that time, these were our three options. So option A was the toolkit option, which would be masks required indoors for all pre-K 8 staff and students, and 9 through 13, all unvaccinated staff and students. So that is what the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services toolkit shares. And as you see, it was the blue there, a small number selected that. Option B was masks required indoors for all pre-K 8 students. 9 through 13, all vaccinated students, and all Nash County Public Schools unvaccinated staff. Was that one the toolkit one? That was not. That was, I think,
That they took it, yeah.
Okay. And then option C, masks required for everyone pre-K 13 staff and students. And there was 68% that chose option C. That you see that there was not a fourth option up there, which is allow masks to be a parent choice, a parental choice, or an individual choice if you're a staff member. However, in looking at the comments,
I'll explain when we get to the.
yeah, in looking at the comments that we had from the survey, there were several that selected option C and said, the reason I'm selecting option C is because consistency is important. So either everyone wears masks or everyone doesn't wear masks. So those, had we had a fourth option, probably would have chosen that. Verifying monitoring vaccinations will be difficult was something that was a big concern, pretty much regardless of what option they selected. And then a concern about staff and student safety and comfort. And I'm sorry, I didn't say this, but there were 7 comments about concerning monitoring vaccinations of those 25 principals who responded. 5 who said that consistency was important, either everyone does or does not. Weren't real strong on they should wear masks, but just that having a consistent plan is something that they wanted to see. And then concern about staff and student safety and comfort. There were 4 comments.
Mr. Bissell, the reason we didn't have that in there is because we did this on Wednesday, and I think Thursday it changed after we had sent it out. That's why you'll see there's basically 3 recommendations, and I'll go over and kind of explain how it went through there. Are there any more questions to the group that? All right. I think I can read it from here. All right, so option A, let me get it right because it's changed, was what the governor came out with Friday. And that's why this was changed, because it was a little different. It looked like B on Wednesday. If one of Mr. Red, I'm glad you're shaking your head. I'm trying to get it right. It's changed. So option A would be mask for everyone based on CDC's toolkit. Everything we've done so far has been the toolkit, CDC. That's what we've gone by since we started. Am I correct? That would be A. Yes. B was a conversation that me and the board chairs had about if you're concerned when option B came out, the governor talked about vaccinated staff not wearing masks. So we decided on an option B, you could have all unvaccinated staff and students would be the ones wearing masks. If you're vaccinated, you don't wear a mask. The governor came out with the K-8, all teachers and staff. We thought if we added all vaccinated staff to that, you wouldn't pit middle school, high school, elementary teachers against each other. However, I want you to think about how a principal would manage this in a building. Just because we vaccinated students, and I'm thinking we vaccinated about 119 students the other day at Southern. So we're starting to vaccinate more kids. That is a burden that these principals, I know why they put in this survey, why that's going to be tough to do. To be able to manage who gets vaccinated, who doesn't. All right. So option C, when we were meeting in the chair, comment was made, well, why don't we just say it's voluntary? For all pre-K 13, all staff and students, they make their decision. The comment I have about that is, if we're talking about being out of school, the quarantine part concerns me, because when we looked at summer scholar numbers, I know why they were low. A lot of it had to do with the mask. Now, you're also talking about a guy that don't like wear masks. But I'm also talking about, we got to get kids in the seats. I'm concerned if we get 14 days of quarantine in classes and students, we're going to be in the same position. So I just want you to think about all these options because they're on the table. I want you to start by thinking about the A and have a conversation, B and C. If we have to come back to this in a month, by all means, we come back to it. I don't want you to think this will be the school year. But I do want you to understand that put yourself in the position of a teacher or an administrator and what we're asking them to do. And that's what I want you to think about because it concerns me. That's all I have. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer.
Any questions or statements? What I would like to do is go by each district, let each board member give a personal statement if they need to at this time, and maybe explain A, B, or C, which way they prefer, and then we'd have a final vote of the board. That way, everybody will have a chance to be on record, explaining how they feel, why they came to this decision, exactly where we're at. Mr. Davis, you're the first one.
Yes, sir. And thank you. I think that's a fair way to approach this. First, I'd like to thank all the parents that took their time to come out, to share their thoughts. It didn't fall on deaf ears. I hear you. I hate these doggone masks just like everybody else. It affects my breathing. I have children who hate them as well. However, I have had a 6-month-old and a 5-year-old in my own family to actually get COVID. They were fortunate to survive. I'm not sure about other problems they may develop later. It is a very difficult decision to make a judgment call when it's a life or death matter. I thought immediately when we were discussing this tonight about Pope Elementary School, when there was a debate about closing it. It was a very important historical school for a community that had a lot of pride in that history. But when a floor fell in, it dawned on me that if a kindergartner or first grader had been in that room, they could have been killed. I can look at a parent and I can take their bullying, their meanness, their hatefulness, their hurt, their pain, anything they feel about the historical school. But I cannot give a child's life back. And when you're thinking about not just your child, but everybody's child, it is a difficult decision, but I have to talk to God and then I have to talk to my own conscience. I say err on the side of caution. I hate them. I hope we won't have to stay in them the whole year, but I'm listening to our superintendent tell us it's difficult for teachers and principals to manage a school. If it's not consistent, we have been consistently following the guidelines of our superintendent and his staff who've done a lot of research in this matter. And I have to go with, let's keep them in the mask and pray it's just for a short time. I would support the option of masks for everybody. There are exceptions. I'm sure children with asthma, people who have other serious illnesses where they cannot govern or use a mask. We do have to make those exceptions. But I rather err on the side of caution and just keep them in it and pray it's just a little bit longer. That's my opinion.
So you go along with option B.
Whichever option, they've been up A. A is the one for all.
Hey, Mr. Edwards.
Good evening. I'd like to just say that a lot of folks voted me into this office and I'm their voice. They've emailed me, they've called me, they've been by my house. And just like the folks here and that have come up to the front and voiced their opinions, all the ones I've heard, other than just one, and we all got that one email, is that the folks want it to be voluntary, and that's where I stand.
That would be option C.
C, correct.
And Mr. Bissett?
I'll echo Mr. Edwards, not to repeat some of the things that he said, but I do thank the parents for coming forward. We need to hear from you guys. The one thing that helps me, as soon as you give us the email last week with the options A, B, and C for us to review, my phone lit up from principals and assistant principals and people like that that said, hey, we weren't given an option. So I was told by numerous people that said, I think I would have voted different had I been given an option of no mask. The only option I had was either all, they want all or none, and I agree with you there. But a majority of principals have called me and said, if I was given an option of it being voluntary and I not have to police it, Mr. Bissett, I'd have changed my vote. So hearing that from a majority of our principals and assistant principals, and living COVID every day, I mean, this board many times has said, trust our principals, trust what they're saying. They're the ones in the field. So I'm doing that. And just like Mr. Edwards, I'm put here by these people. It is a dangerous thing. I agree with Ms. Chavis. I live in COVID every day in my career. But I can say with some of the things that you put in place and that we're doing, we didn't shut a school down last year. We didn't shut a hallway. We didn't shut a classroom, did we not? So I think we're doing good. People with this board jumped up and down, get vaccinated. And we've done that. If you wanted it, you got it. If you don't, you don't. So, I mean, I think we're at the point that we've got to get these kids back in school. Masks are not going to work. Teachers are telling me, you're hiring me to teach phonics, but you're covering up my mouth and I can't teach the kids. I think it is the parents' choice and we're giving them a choice. We've got to teach and we've got to teach our children. Let's put them in there. And I respect the people that if you do feel fear for your child, I feel for you. When we are giving you an option, maybe we need to come back and look at opening up our NETA program. That's another discussion for a different time. But I think virtual is an option for those. And I can just keep rambling on and on, but I think it's the parents' choice. I'm for plan C, or option C, excuse me.
Sure.
First of all, I'd like to say I appreciate all the comments, remarks that have been made. I can't speak for nobody else but myself. And this has been a hard decision to make. I've relied on our superintendent and his staff who's done such an eloquent job in presenting us data. While they present the data, I've looked at also the mandates from CDC and all the health officials. I looked at what people said. Ms. Chavis, I appreciate your comments, remarks. I think they were exceptions, second to none. I can't say as Mr. Bishop said, I haven't talked to all the principals, but I have talked to a few. And I've also looked at the data that's presented before me.
The decision I make is not based upon what the superintendent says. It's not based upon what the parents are thinking through. It's not based upon what my thoughts are. It's what's best for our children. We make that decision every day, and sometimes it's not good. This has been through much prayer. For those of you who know me, what my faith and where I stand on the word of God and what it says. I'll make that decision on that, and I have to trust him to lead and direct, and that's what I've done. I will continue to do that. For that reason, I looked at what the superintendent shared with his staff. I really appreciate that. He made an astute observation. We need to get our children back in school, all of them. We don't need to have quarantines. We may run that risk. We don't need to put the principals or the administration in a position that they got to police this. I got a grandkid that I love dearly. They will be coming to school in the upcoming spring or fall. I got cousins that's in this district that I think of them as well. My heart goes out to that. So with that said, I'm going to mandate what the superintendent says, that we can always go back and review this subject. So Mr. Chair, I'm going to say that we had this discussion, you and I had this discussion as far as allowing the parents to make that decision. With what I've heard over the last and read over the last week or so, with this new strand that's coming out, it shows no discrimination about age, ethnicity, or socioeconomic. It's just what it is. So with that said, I'm going to vote for the mandate we all wear masks until the superintendent deems it necessary to go back.
Plan A.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very quickly, thank you to all the parents that came tonight. Thank you to all the parents that have reached out. You know, as of this moment, there is not a mandate for us to wear masks indoors. I'm guessing it's coming, just kind of in reading the tea leaves. And if it does, we'll react accordingly. But until that time, I would not be in favor of a blanket mask requirement for our parents or our teachers, our staff, our students. We have given them an opportunity to do things to, while probably not prevent anything 100%, to certainly offset it. And then the other piece of that is to go partial and try and put that on our principals and teachers to, to decide or put that responsibility on them is also unfair. So at this time, as it sits today, I certainly would be in favor of option C and making it voluntary for those that would either want to opt in or opt out.
Jenkins?
Well, sort of figured you were going to ask us to make a statement first, so I sort of went ahead and prepared it. I just want all the parents to know that you can rest assured that I'll be voting with the idea in mind that parents should be the deciding factor in regards to the children's health and well-being. We're here to provide your children with the best educational opportunities possible. I feel it should be left in your hands as to what's best for your individual child's health care. So I'll be voting C.
Mr. Silver?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to vote in favor of everyone wearing masks. That will be option A. I see the importance of everybody being protected. I understand there are some parents that want to allow their children to do what they feel is best, which is nothing wrong with that. But we're talking about more than just your children. We're talking about all nearly 15,000 kids that we have in our district, as well as our teachers and our administrators. So my vote will be for option A.
Ms. Washington?
Yeah, so we've heard from the principals. In my opinion, making sure that everyone remains safe, it should be our priority. Since kids are not able to get vaccinated at this time, they're vulnerable. I understand that, like Ms. Chavis said, that some of them have illnesses, that makes the mask uncomfortable, but uncomfortable is better than is being alive. And that's where I need everyone, all stakeholders to stay. I need them to stay alive. So that is my position. And for that reason, I would have to support at this time, option A. I'm certainly for revisiting it if numbers improve, if conditions improve on a monthly basis. But today and when we start school, my choice is going to be option A.
Hey, Mr. E. Bullock.
I will not say a whole lot. I will be short in what I say because how I feel on the matter has already been so clearly explained. I think we are in a position to make a decision not for just a small group, but we are tasked with making a decision for our whole district. And my decision would be that we follow the plan, the recommendation of the superintendent, that we go with option A. And I say that, and I'll just emphasize, and then I'll be finished. I'll just emphasize that I would rather be uncomfortable with a mask. And sometimes I go out and forget to put my mask on because I've gotten used to not wearing it in some places. But I'm getting back now into wearing my mask because of the turn this virus has taken. So with that, I will say again, my vote would be that everybody wears a mask. And I think that's plan A, option A.
Hey, Ms. S. Bullock.
Yes, I'm, excuse me, in support of option A. I've buried multiple family members and I don't want that for anyone else. And I'm not thinking of individuals, I'm thinking of our community. I'm thinking of children under the age of 12 who cannot be vaccinated. I have two myself who are in elementary school in our system and cannot be vaccinated. And it's not just about my children's health, but it's about our entire community. And I think that matters. And I think that we can revisit monthly. I'm completely fine with that. But if we have an option that will keep kids safe and keep kids in school, I think that's what we should go with option A. And we need to be proactive versus reactive. And we don't want to start and then have to implement it when we can just implement it. And as it gets better, then we can kind of reduce those restrictions. And again, it's about the community. It's not just about one school. It's not about one section of the city or the counties. It's about the entire community and keeping our entire community safe. So I'm in support of option A.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank our teachers because the last report I've got that we have over 64% that have been vaccinated. You know, back in January, when we wanted to start back school, a lot of people were jumping up and down about the vaccination. And now we lead the state and the national as far as percentage of vaccinations. I don't like the mask. Never have liked the mask. I don't like Zooming. I've never Zoomed. If we expect our teachers to be back in the classroom, we need to have board members back in these meetings. That's a firm belief. At the same time, as far as the mask, I would hate for any child to get sick or worse. That would be a terrible thing to have on our conscience. That's why I'm a firm believer the parents need to take some decision-making opportunities on their own. As far as the vaccination, my wife has had the vaccination. I've had the vaccination. I got a 22-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old daughter. They have not. It's like I've told some folks, I would hate to see them be vaccinated and 2 years from now, we worrying about fertility. At the same time, I would hate for either one of them to catch COVID and maybe die. But I would feel bad either way. but that is a parental decision. Both of them are old enough to make some decisions. As far as the mask, I remember back when I was in the 5th grade many years ago, I had a severe asthma. That might be why I don't like the mask. Plus, I see what my wife is going through, and this isn't the first time I've said that. I've shared it with other board members. She is a full-grown woman wearing a mask all day, and I see what it has done to her every night. She comes in and flakes out on the couch. There's going to be a report probably in 2 years from now that the mask probably caused more anxiety, depression, even maybe some fatalities than not wearing it. That's going to be down the road. I just know how I think it would affect me. If I had a child in kindergarten or 1st or 2nd grade, I would want it to be my decision whether my child wore a mask. I have been a teacher. I can promise you if I was teaching now and I've been vaccinated, enough's enough. It's time to get back to regular school. I will not wear a mask. If I was a principal, I will not wear a mask. I'm at these meetings, I do not wear a mask, except when the lawyer gets after me sometimes. But it's time for people to take the bull by the horns and make their own decisions. That's all. The motion is 6-5 to follow Plan A. Any more discussion?
Did we have a motion?
Well,
We didn't have a motion.
I will entertain a motion to go with Plan A as is supported by the majority of the board.
Mr. Chair, I make that motion.
Motion by
Second.
Ms. Bullock. Second by
S. Bullock.
S. Bullock.
Real quick question, just for Dr. Ellis. I heard it mentioned a couple of times. Did I miss in here that the recommendation from the superintendent's office was Plan A or Option A on face
We
covering?
had said that we followed the toolkit for Plan A. When we met as board chairs, we talked about B being the recommendation because it was allowed. We talked about vaccinations last year and how that was important. And we were going to bring that up to say, if you wanted all teachers who were vaccinated, then they would not be required to wear masks. But I don't think anyone discussed that.
Okay.
Have a motion, have a second. Roll call vote. Ms. Chavis,
Yes, for A.
Mr. Edwards,
No.
I'm a no. Mr. Visit,
Nope.
Mr. Sharp,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
No.
Mr. Jenkins,
No.
Mr. Silver,
Yes.
Ms. Washington,
Yes.
Ms. E. Bullock,
Yes.
Ms. S. Bullock.
Yes.
Motion passed by a 6-5 margin. Donations, Dr. Catalano.
I thought we were done. What, we adjourned?
Got a whole lot more left. So we have got in your board materials donations, a donation letter. Donations that value over $200 in compliance with policy 8220 have got to be reported to the board. In the letter, you see a total donation of $1,000, and that actually just encompasses one donation for MB Hubbard Elementary School from Betsy Cameron. She donated that $1,000 to be used for the music department to purchase music materials and resources. The superintendent recommends approval of all donations as presented.
Mr. Chair, so moved, as Donovan would say.
And second.
Motion by Mr. Silver, second by Ms. Chavis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Motion carried. Personnel recommendations, Ms. Wallace.
Good evening again, Chairman Lamb, Vice Chair Sharp, President, and virtual board members. The personnel recommendation report has been presented and reviewed. On behalf of Superintendent Ellis, your approval of the personnel report is requested.
I entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Ms. Chavis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Personnel recommendations, information.
No approval is needed.
Administrative Services and Operations Committee, Mr. Sharp.
Mr. Chair, we met with the open session earlier. I'm making a recommendation to the board that we accept all 8 items. We have some action items and some information, all the action items. I'm making a motion, we accept them all.
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Sharp to accept all 8 items, second by Mr. Silver. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Academic Services and Accountability. I likewise would like to make a motion to accept the 2 amendments or 2 approvals for adjustment of the early college calendar, K-5 reading and math assessments. Any questions? Second by Mr. Visit. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Policy Committee, Ms. Bullock.
Mr. Chair, the Policy Committee met on the 27th of July. We discussed a total of 11 policies for final approval, and they are listed in the information we received earlier, later last week, the latter part of last week. I move that we approve those 11 policies for final approval.
Second.
Oh,
What?
Evelyn, those ones were first read policies.
Yes.
I thought,
To sit for 30 days.
all right, then, I'm sorry, I changed my motion. I looked at my information completely wrong then. They are for first read, and I move that we approve them. And should I read out the policy numbers, since there was that confusion? Policy number, no, all right. Then I move that we approve the policies and let them lay on the table for 30 days. First read.
Motion by Ms. Bullock, second by Mr. Silver. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carried. Superintendent's report.
We
excuse me,
also
one more.
have policy for
Oh, the
final
first read.
approval. We have 2 policies for final approval.
Okay, all right.
And I
do have
move
a-
that we approve these 2 policies for final approval.
Motion by Ms. Bullock,
Second.
second by Mr. Sharp. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Motion carried. Superintendent's report.
So I just want to, I guess the parents were here and they have left, but I appreciate their participation tonight. We need to hear more of them. I want to thank Summer Scholars, Ms. Nancy Smith's team, who did an excellent job. We made some great gains for lost time for these students. I do want to emphasize to the board that this mask mandate stuff is tough. And I'm glad we had a good dialogue tonight where we brought it out, we talked about it, but I'm gonna tell you time and time again, we'll probably talk about it next month based on what's going on. But also, I think I want to keep in the forefront that these kids have got to be in school. And I know how many days we lost last year. And I know everyone has their own opinions about masks and I don't like them. Look, I'm the world's worst here and this whole group can tell you. But I know one thing, you have directed my team here to educate these kids at their highest performance. And if I can't get them for 180 days, I promise you, we're not gonna get where we need to be. So I just appreciate the dialogue tonight. If Mr. Bissett wants me to send some principal surveys out, we can do that with different options. We'll do it again. But I'll make sure we give you some up-to-date information so you can know the next board meeting we move forward and see what we can do. Okay.
We voted now, so it's. We're worried.
I mean, it's a work in progress. It might, I would like to know.
I like to commend the central office on how hard they work, getting us up to date and up to speed and all this stuff. And I, like the superintendent, We go along with the mass project on the quarantine. Like I said before, we need to have them back in school. But if we had an outbreak, who's to say the quarantine is gonna remain the same? Everything's been so wishy-washy. That's the reason I wanted a regular school day. Hopefully by our next meeting, the kids will be back in school, regular school, and we can have a regular board meeting, minus the Zoom. That's all I got to say. Upcoming meetings. August Policy Committee meeting Tuesday, August 17th at 4:00. September Administrative Service and Operation Committee, Thursday, September 9th. September Student Support Services and Operation Committee, September 9th. Academic Services and Accountability Committee meeting, September 9th. Work session Thursday, September 9th. And board meeting Thursday, September 9th. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sharp,
Second.
second by Mr. Visit. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Motion carried.